and I'm also going to do an exercise in the middle of my conversation with all of you, so be on the lookout for that. So my talk is titled The Art and Science of Becoming Faster, Smarter, Better. You'll find this tagline from most IU work because we think that, following in Europe's footsteps, evaluation has both functions, learning and accountability. And what we are helping organizations to do is to become faster, smarter, better. So, first, and this is IE specialist not included in this question, top 2 responses to this question. I promise you I'll give you a gift. What are impact evaluations? Anyone? Other than C4ED? Thank you. Random guess?
Output of your objectives.
Output of your objectives, okay. Thanks, sir. Anyone? Yes?
Tangible changes.
Tangible changes?
Baseline.
Very good. So tangible changes from baseline. One more answer. I need one more. Yeah, Linus.
Assessing effectiveness of intervention.
Assessing effectiveness of intervention, students. Yusuf?
Changes based on only the intervention.
Changes based only on the intervention. Okay, so all of these are interesting. I'm glad. So when I teach some of this, a lot of people talk about, well, we have to evaluate long-term impact. And the one thing that I want to get out of the room very quickly is that impact evaluation is not so much about only measuring long-term impact. Rose put up this question and I wanted to address it right at the beginning. And as we go along, over the 2.5 days, we're going to be talking about some of the things that impact evaluations can help you do. A very favorite book of mine is called Ghost Map. It basically talks about how in the 1800s, people got to know about what causes cholera. People thought that it was caused by bad air, by people being infected, other people being infected by cholera. There was a wonderful priest who came along in London, and he basically said, there's a complex system of reasons that can lead to cholera. Right? So you can be living in poor, people associated cholera with poverty, people associated it with what's called bad air or miasma, people associated with a whole lot of other reasons. So it was very complex. What impact evaluations, and that's when impact evaluations started, helped him to do is to identify the cause of cholera. And how did he do it? He found that there was, if you had 2 types of water system coming from 2 different sources, around one set of water pipes, you did not find a huge amount of cholera incidents. And on the other side, you did find a huge amount of cholera incidents. One proved to be the comparison group for the other. But with that, he was then able to identify that even in a complex universe, you can start to think about single causal relationships. So hold that thought in your mind. I'm hoping that as we go along, we'll be able to sort of clarify what are called confounding factors in complex systems. Okay, how many of you know about Progressor? Okay. So, Progressor in 1995 was this big traditional cash transfer program that started in Mexico. So at that time, it was a really interesting idea, but there was only funding for essentially 500 communities. And it was a cash transfer where you were giving vulnerable households $10 to $12 per household. Now, there was a new president that had become president of Mexico at that time, and he wanted to understand, well, what is the $10 to $12 per household per month getting us? They set up an impact evaluation, and they found a few things. First, it was a well-targeted program. As you can imagine, when cash transfers first started, there was a big problem of detractors, the opposition, saying, oh no, if you give poor households money, they're going to spend it on alcohol and drugs. There were also journalists who came and basically said that this is going to go to households that are already very rich, so it's pointless giving it to them, right? But the impact evaluation found that it was a well-targeted program. It was going to households that were otherwise quite poor. Second, it found that just in 2 years, school enrollment increased by 7/10 of a year as a consequence of the cash transfer. So it helped you to quantify what was happening as a consequence of the conditional cash transfer. The third is that there were anthropometric measures, so the weights of babies was increasing after they were getting conditional cash transfers. And fourth, the incidence of illness was going down. How was the conditional cash transfer working? It was working because households were only getting the $10 to $12 at the end of the month if they could prove that they were going to, if their children were attending classes for 80% of the days during that month, and or if they had a woman of childbearing age, then she needed to have gone to the clinic during the month. That then, after two years of Progressive being on the ground and being implemented, they found these interesting results. There were two things that stood out for me. First, this program, when it first started, it was only a $2 million program. And the president at that time of Mexico was very beleaguered. He was basically told that, this is the only time that you can do this program. When the results of the impact evaluation came out, he could say this in quantifiable terms. He could say 7/10 of a year increase in school enrollment. He could also say that there is a reduction in incidence of illness in quantifiable terms. And this was the point that York was making as well. Communication of the result of your investment becomes far sharper, far easier if you set up these impact evaluations, because you don't have to wave your hands. You can sort of say, with 95% confidence. Yeah, that's your statistical confidence. With 95% confidence, we can say that these results were occurring as a consequence of our investment. That's extremely powerful. You don't have to say anything else. The second thing that stood out to me was, as a consequence of this evidence, this program, which was just $2 million, just funded for $2 million, became scaled up to $5 billion. Yeah, by 2000, it was an order of magnitude increase in the program size. It became scaled up to the entire country. And over the years, no single politician has been able to displace this program because the effects of the program are so well documented and credibly reported. And that's the power and seduction of impact evaluation. You can make these conclusions in a confident way, and you can quantify them. Right? So it helped them to scale up the program as well. And of course, now in Mexico, this program is called Oportunidades. So the name has changed, but the program has stayed in place. Okay, so basically what it used was a random sample of 506 eligible communities. In 1995, when it started, it was only 506 eligible communities. And there is something called random assignment. As we go along, we'll talk about what random assignment means and how you can use it in your programs. Okay, so what's so difficult about this, right? There are very few evaluations in my life that I've seen have, single sentences that say, the program caused this effect. This sentence, if you ever see this single sentence at the end of an evaluation, even if it's just 1 page long, it's one of the most powerful sentences you can have in an evaluation. And let's think about why. First, it identifies what the project is. In this case, this is just a made-up example. But it's basically saying, this is a project, some GCF adaptation project. So it identifies it. Very few evaluations would actually tell you what we are doing and who they are doing it to. Yeah, and what are their key actions. That's the first. The second is it identifies who's your target group for smallholder farmers. Yeah? Here, the target group are my smallholder farmers. The third is it's saying income. So it's identifying a key impact indicator in this one sentence. Very few projects will say what is our primary or our key impact indicator. Fourth, it's saying there was an increase. So it's telling you the direction of that change. Again, very, very few evaluations will say increase, decrease, remain the same with confidence, statistical confidence. This is important. Next, it's saying 7%. It could be anything. It could be 25%. It could be 110%. But it's giving you a number. Yeah? Very few projects will actually come out with giving you a number and saying, okay, we can say with 95% confidence that we made this difference. And then last but not least, it's using a verb called caused. This is really the most powerful verb that you can use in the sentence. It's basically saying it's the investment that caused the difference. Yeah? It wasn't something else. It wasn't the complex characters of other, macroeconomic effects that were taking place in the economy at the same time. It wasn't some other government policy. It was this project, and this is what caused the difference. That's powerful. Okay, so thinking about this, again, I'm going to use the slide that Solomon did. What's common to all these evaluations that we think about when we think about impact evaluations? They answer 4 questions. Did the program cause the change? Would the change have occurred anyway, even in the absence of the program? Third, if the program caused the change, how much was that change? So remember the sentence I put up. What's the quantified difference that's being caused by the investment? And last but not least, are there cheaper ways to get the same change? Right? And all of these beg for what's called a counterfactual or a comparison group. Because in all of this, you're thinking about, can you attribute the change that is occurring to the investment? This attributable change. You will hear all of our colleagues talk about attributable change over the next 2.5 days. Can you attribute it to the investment? That's huge. So that's what we want you to think about as you go along. Okay, so what if we didn't do impact evaluations, right? So let's think about this, and let's think about some of the data that you all get in your projects. And what do we need to measure? So, I'm going to use an example of providing cash transfers to disadvantaged and low-income groups. And this is setting up the exercise that all of you will do as well. So, in most projects, suppose we are thinking about, the outcome that I'm thinking about is, well, what is the proportion of people that are living in the communities that we are targeting that have achieved a certain level of income? And let's assume my intervention is a cash transfer program, right? So at the end of this program, a lot of project reports will say, we were really successful. Guess what? 92% of the people living in our target groups basically achieved the income level that we said they would. 92% is a pretty good looking number, right? It basically means that only 8% did achieve that income level that you were targeting. So by any metric, you would think, okay, well, this project has to be successful. And this is basically the number or the data that most projects have. Majority of evaluations have just this information. What happened at end line? Did we achieve the target or not? And the number looks usually quite good, 92%, and you're like, okay, I've achieved everything I wanted, now we are successful. But of course, with this, we can say absolutely nothing about impact. Any ideas why not?
Because we are not taking the before what was the situation.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't know where it started from. So right now, we can't say that 92% was caused by the program, right? Okay. So let's suppose we have exactly what Saurabh said, we now have the before number, right? So now we're starting from 40 and we went up to 92. Yeah. This is what is called a single difference. So you started 40% of the the population that I was targeting had the income that I was targeting, and now it's 92%. So now, okay, now I'm not saying that all 92% was caused by the project, but I'm saying 92 minus 40 was caused by the project. That's 52 percentage points. Not as good as 92, but pretty good looking still, right? So 52% caused by the project. Is this sufficient? Is this what you want to do? Does it tell you exactly what can you say that this was the change caused by the project? There could be other reasons as well. And my slide is giving you also part of the answer. This is what is called outcome monitoring. Outcome monitoring is important. I'm not saying it's not, but it's not the same thing as knowing what was the change caused by a project. It's not the same, right? So, like you said, sorry, am I mixing up your names? Sorry. Okay, so what we want to know is what was happening in areas that did not have the project. So remember something that Solomon said as well. What would have happened, and Björn said this as well, what would have happened had there been no project? And that's basically what my comparison group is set up for. I want to know, well, what's happening in the other areas that look similar, but didn't get the project, or didn't get the investment, right? So this is what is called, so I could have this, and at the end of the project, I could set up a comparison group and say, look, in the project areas that we were, 92% achieved the income level, but guess what, in the surrounding areas, only 84% achieved that income level. So compared to our other areas, we're doing very well. So it's still, now it's not 92 minus 40, which was the 52 percentage point, but I'm still saying that look, over comparable areas, you know, I made an 8 percentage point difference, right? 92 minus 84. That's 8 percentage points. It's not as good as the 52 percentage points, but it's still a decent looking number. No? But we don't know whether they were similar at the beginning, right? So what we want to know is basically, and this is what is called an ex post single difference. That is, at the end of the project, you set up, you look at comparable areas, and you understand what's happening there, and that's called an ex post single difference. Okay. What you ideally want is this. You want before and after for your project areas, but you also want it for your comparison areas. Before and after project and treatment and comparison. Okay? And this is what is called a double difference. Now let's see what's happening. So in the project area, I have 92 minus 40. That's a 52 percentage point difference. But in the comparison area, there's an 84 minus 26. There's a 58 percentage point difference. So that means I made less of a difference in my project area compared to the areas that weren't getting the GCF intervention. Probably they would have been better off without the GCF intervention. There's a minus 6 percentage point difference being caused by the intervention. So suddenly we've gone from, oh, we are so cool, and we are making a 92 percentage point difference to, oh, it's actually minus 6. Right? And this is what we're asking. And actually, in many cases, the example reverses. You have macroeconomic shocks, and a lot of funders will come and tell you, well, you didn't make a difference. With macroeconomic shocks, such as, you could go into debt crisis, etc. With your projects, you can actually show that even though your numbers are, what was equivalent to baseline, in the absence of your intervention, because there was a macroeconomic shock occurring at the same time, your project area would have been worse off. That's what impact evaluations can help you do. This is what is called a double difference. Yeah? So a double difference basically helps you look at before, after for both project and for comparison areas. Okay, so what do we need to measure impact? You need data for your before, for your project area, but before the intervention. You need data for your comparison area, but before the intervention. You need data for your project area after the intervention. And you need data for your comparison area after the intervention. But just one data point is clearly not sufficient because you need large numbers to avoid statistical bias. So you need a lot of data points for each one of these squares because that's where law of large numbers come in. Yeah? And for those who don't know law of large numbers, absolutely fine. Think of the toss of a coin. You do it 10 times and you get 8 heads and 2 tails, and you think it's a biased coin. But that's not true. It's when you get to 1,000 tosses of a coin that you get to know actually as to whether the coin is unbiased or not. You should then, in 1,000 flips of a coin, get to 500 heads and 500 tails. Right? But with 10 tosses of a coin, you can't conclude whether the coin is biased or unbiased because the sample size is too small. So sample sizes make a big difference. And that's why you need to have large number of observations for each one of these squares. Okay,